There's been a lot going on since last week, and I haven't therefore gotten around to commenting on this, but my new favourite driver, Franco Colapinto, has in fact been re-signed for 2026, and I know there's a lot of people thinking it's a mistake, but it's definitely not, and here's why. This video is brought to you by checkmythumbnail.com, the analysis tool for YouTubers by YouTubers. Try it free today. So as you guys know, or probably know, I am a huge fan of Franco Colapinto now, and I'm really excited that he got signed once again for 2026. He's a brilliant character, he's an amazing racer, and I think there's a lot of potential there. And in fact, look, as sorry as I felt for Doohan at the start of the season, I feel like they should have just put him in from the very start and, allowed Doohan to have the race in Abu Dhabi. But why continue and make things so bad for Doohan? There was no need to do that. It's the exact thing I expect with a Flavio-run team. But then since Colapinto came in, obviously because of the way he replaced Doohan and because of his initial performances, a lot of people basically decided that they didn't like Colapinto, he doesn't deserve to be there and so on. And I think it's unfair. I honestly think it's the same level of hate, for example, that people will give to the likes of Perez when he was alongside Max or Tsunoda or Lawson or, whoever. Instead of going, you know what, he's doing a decent job. It's just that Max is absolutely killing it. And obviously the team is going to put its focus there and so on. Like, why do we bash the driver when in reality the team is the problem? Like, Colapinto getting in the car is not Colapinto's fault. He's just doing what he's supposed to be doing. So the fact that anyone hates Colapinto is kind of odd to me, because really you should be angry at Flavio and Alpine for doing it in such a shit showy way. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm just glad he got it. And you know what? I think he deserves it. Sure, his opening stints weren't brilliant. They really weren't. However, I think since then, he's been doing a really good job, and I think he managed to work through the pressure. And we need to remember the immense pressure that was on him, like Doohan, is hard to overcome. And it looked like even a driver like him, who was able to shrug things off last year, nearly crippled under it. And again, why I think Doohan got a very hard time, and I think he was unfairly treated, is because he went through the same thing, essentially, to a worse extent. But let's get past all that real quick. Colapinto, since then, over the last 8-9 races, has been doing a really, really good job. And in fact, in their time together between him and Gasly, he's actually done a better job than even I expected him to do, given where the car is. Everyone's going to point to the fact that this is a pointless car, right? That this is a pointless driver at the moment, literally speaking. However, if we look at how many points Gasly has got since he joined the team, it kind of paints the picture for you. The car is absolutely nowhere, and most weekends, they're fighting over 15th and 16th place. But Colapinto is showing exactly why he deserves to be in F1. First of all, before I get into some of the stats, I think the way he drove in Austin is exactly what we expect from Formula 1 drivers. When it comes to drivers like Max and Schumacher and Vettel and so on betraying team orders, we love it because that's what championship drivers do. And then when we see drivers like Piastri and Norris following team orders, we're like, why are you following team orders? Why are there team orders and so on? And yet again, for some reason, when Colapinto did it, it was like, why is he at the team? Which really bugged me because he should be praised for that. And I guarantee you Flavio did. But Alpine, publicly at least, needed to hit it a little bit. But I thought the fact that he was so willing to just ignore team orders, go through, apologize afterwards, ask for forgiveness later, was amazing when you think that they were fighting for 14th. It wasn't important. But to him, it's every position counts. Why I love him as a driver. He's just willing to go all or nothing. And I think if Alpine can deliver a car next year, it'll be better. If we look at their time together so far, he's actually been doing a pretty good job. So look, it's 13-5 qualifying head-to-head. Doesn't sound great, but in fairness, we know the car was tricky. We've heard that from Gasly as well. Gasly's a very good qualifier. He's been there for a couple of seasons now. And obviously, Colapinto was dropped in mid-season, no testing, lots of pressure, all these things. And he didn't have even the testing program with Alpine, the extensive testing that Doohan would have had for a while. So I think 13-5 isn't that bad. And also, for a similar reason to what I've talked about in a recent video with Hamilton, it's been just under 2/10 off. So it's not like it's a huge gap either. And he's really, really brought that gap down from 4 or 5 tenths at the start of the season. Brazil didn't go great, but on average, it's actually been pretty good. And 2/10 makes it look much worse, as I've talked about recently with Hamilton and Leclerc. Even though the head-to-head would be the same, you look at positions gained, 2/10 is a huge amount of positions in this season. So sometimes you'll see Gasly getting through to the edges of Q3 and Colapinto's out in Q1. But then when you actually look at the difference, it's a tenth or two. It's not as bad as it seems. And in the races, since they've been together for 15 races, it has been 9-6. Now, the 13-5, by the way, I should point out, is just in both sprint and qualifying. Broken out, Gasly leads by 3-0 in the sprints and 10-5 in overall qualifying. Hence, it's 13-5, for those of you wondering. In the actual races, then, it's a lot closer. It's 9-6, which again, given everything I've just said about the fact Gasly's been there a while, all of those things, I think 9-6 is actually a pretty decent gap. And the fact that Colapinto has been able to do that has been really impressive. I know he's had a longer time to prove himself, but I think that the fact that he's been able to do that for all the reasons I've said has been really, really impressive. And then in sprint races, it's 2-1. So I think that's a really, really good job. And Gasly has 22 points. Colapinto has none, which I think is the main sticking point for a lot of people. But most of those 22 points, I think pretty much all of them, apart from 1 or 2, were scored at the start of the season, a long time it's time with Doohan, when the Alpine was a little bit more competitive. And that's where I think it's more interesting, because the Alpine was more competitive back then. They haven't developed on it at all. It's just that the other teams have developed, and therefore it's more competitive that way. So yeah, Gasly has outqualified him 10 times out of 5 in the races, and it's been on average by 4 positions, but again, it's 2/10. It's not a huge deal. So I think Colapinto is doing a really good job. And look, the simple way to sum this up is this is Colapinto's not even first full season, but the longest time he's had in a Formula 1 seat. When he has testing, everything else, when he learns from these mistakes, and under this boilerplate of pressure that he's under, I think if you look at it, the fact that he's even getting this close to Gasly in this first time together, when Gasly's been there for a while, and this is, remember, essentially the 2024 car, so Gasly's already driven this car basically for a season, I think it shows that keeping Colapinto is a really good idea. And I genuinely think, and I know this will probably age like milk and come back to bite me in the ass, I think that Gasly should be quite concerned, because I think after all this pressure, when the winter break comes, Colapinto can reset, relax, come back and do full-on testing in new cars that have a completely new way of driving. There's a good chance Colapinto could be the one next year who's outclassing Gasly, and that could be really, really bad for Gasly's future, given Colapinto's younger, he's got more potential, more upside, so on, and a lot more money behind him. I think it could be an interesting one. So I am really looking forward to it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and please check out my revived Car Nerd channel if you're interested in automotive content.